Vermeer.
Oh, wow. This feels like, I kind of feel like a rock star now. But welcome. And I am the first session after lunch. And I get it, because after lunch, you're at that point like, should I fall asleep or not? Well, let me get to that. I don't care. If you want to sleep in my session, I'm totally fine. Just one thing: don't snore. Can we get to that point? If somebody's sleeping next to you, just leave him. As long as you rate me 5 stars and don't snore, then we're good. Let's get started, because I'm gonna start with this word, DevSecOps. I want to see hands. Who likes the word DevSecOps? Exactly 4 people. Perfect, because I hate it as well. I hate the word DevSecOps, because what's next? Biz DevSec Cloud Performance Ops? I mean, it's like we had this cool abbreviation, DevOps, and in DevOps we try to tear down walls, get the silos together, and it sounded kind of cool, right? And with DevOps we try to enable you to get more things done in the same amount of time, because there's no partitioning anymore. It's not like throw it over the wall, it's your problem. No, what you do is what you own. Because who practices DevOps? Not everybody. Okay, let me rephrase that. Who creates code, puts it into production, and as the English would say, when the shit hits the fan, they will call you in the middle of the night, you need to fix it. That's a lot more. You do DevOps, trust me. It means you create it, you own it. It's not anymore that it's somebody else's problem, it's your problem. That is the basis, in my opinion, of DevOps. And DevSecOps, that second in the middle, it's there not because security is so important. Yes, it is. But it needs to be part of both the dev and the sec part, or the dev and the ops part. But first, who am I? Well, I'm Brian. I'm a developer advocate for Snyk. I'm an engineer still. I'm not the developer advocate that only does emails. I still develop, trust me. I do some community work for the Utrecht Java user group. And the virtual jug, who knows the virtual jug? If you don't, please enroll. That's all I say. But let me get into that DevSecOps part, because it's important. But okay, DevOps, DevSecOps, we're trying to solve a problem. What is that problem? I mean, if I look 5 years ago, or maybe 10 years ago, I was working at a banking firm. And before that, I was working at a government agency, which is even worse. But we deployed 3 times a year. Nowadays, when you do, for instance, e-commerce, you might deploy 3 times a day. So what we're trying to do is we try to speed up the stuff. We're trying to get things done. They need to be better, faster, and stronger than our competitors. Because if we get the stuff out earlier, we have an advantage over our competitors. And yeah, well, eventually we need to make money, right? So that's a fair thing. The problem is we only focus on features. And it's not particularly your problem, but the problem of the company. Because you all know that product manager comes up to you, we need this. When do you need it? Yesterday. And that's impossible. Okay, today. Fine. But the problem is because we focus on the features so much, security is not a first-class citizen in our mind, right? It works, ship it. And then you can ask, do you test? Well, probably you do, because we're all good developers. But do we have enough security knowledge that we know we will not get breached? And to be fair, in every company, we probably have a security team or a security department, but it's still at the end of the line. DevOps are together, but then there's that security dude at the end of the line that says no. Why? I worked for 2 weeks on my feature, and then he says, no, there's a possible breach, and you're like, go yourself. And there's going to be a clash between you and the security team, because it's siloed. So we need to get that in the team, because in the end, we don't want customer data to be compromised, right? You don't want to be the cause of the big headlines in the news, like company X just released 140 million records of their customers without knowing it. But how bad is that situation? Well, we are not in the United States, so I can do a fair amount of checking. Who knows the company Equifax? That's a fair amount. Keep your hands up, keep your hands up. How many of you knew of Equifax, like, say, 4 years ago? Perfect, that's marketing, right? That is perfect marketing. Everybody knows your name, even outside your own country. Equifax is a crediting company in the United States. And I will not get into the company, I will get into the problem. They were using Apache Struts 2, an outdated version of Apache Struts 2, and there was a vulnerability in that. And that vulnerability was found. At a certain point, it was disclosed, and there was a newer version of Apache Struts released. But if you don't know that, and you think, it runs fine, then people can go in. People can snoop around. People can stay in there for months. And in the end, 143 million records of US customers were out in the open. And look it up, I think 6 months ago, they tried to settle that lawsuit for that. $700 million, something like that. So how much does a security breach cost? A lot. But that's funny, right? Let me get into that hack right away. So it's still fresh in your mind. I didn't prepare this. Yes, I did. Of course I did. So if you, I've got a Java application here on Heroku. So it's in the cloud. So demos in the cloud always work on conferences because Wi-Fi is super. Let me get into the problem of Equifax. Well, this is not the one. This is the one. So the point is, we're going to do a call to that system with a certain header. And this is the header, as you can see. And you're like, what? It's a content type, as you can see over here. But who recognizes this content type? Nobody. It's a faulty content type. It's not a real content type. This one goes into an exceptional flow within that particular version of Struts. Point is, Struts has the OGNL language, Object Graph Navigational Language. It's an expression language in Struts, and with that expression language, you can interfere with the objects at that point that are there. You can get, you can set stuff, you can get stuff, you can manipulate stuff, or you can create new objects. And in that exceptional flow, you can create new objects, or you can utilize OGNL. And what are we doing here? Let me highlight it is, we are calling a process builder. And we are giving a command to that process builder. And what happens? I just pop up a new process, and I can do everything I want or that is available for that user in that system. Shall I do that? Yes, of course I do that. So let me get this command, and I will do this command line, of course, because no good hacker in his damn mind would do it in the browser. And normally you wear a hoodie with a cap on so they don't recognize you, but that's too late for that, I guess. So what I do is I use that header I showed you, and I replace command with env, which simply shows me the environment variables, and I will hit Java goof Brian on Heroku. Let me do that. And then you will see I will have the environment variables here of my Heroku instance, of that instance that's running in the cloud now. Only that instance, of course. Fun thing is, I can see the Java home over here. Java home is located in the /app/.jdk. Well, this is just reading. But because it's a process builder, I can call everything. I can create files. I can delete files. I can create a cron job if I want to. So you see how bad it is? And it's not that header, you have to work it out yourself. But once somebody worked that out, I don't know what his way of living was, but somebody worked that out and published it on the internet. You get it? Then you might be in trouble because it's an open source package. And people are just shooting at one endpoint and another endpoint and another endpoint until they got some results back. And potentially, if somebody's using it, many people are using that, there are many victims. And if you don't know this, because it's in production and you don't see it, you don't have logging on or whatever, they can snoop around and can keep in forever. Please remember this Java home thing. We need it later. So, getting back to the actual presentation, I will do more hacking, trust me. Say this is your application. Think for yourself, how much of that application, this is the binary you put into production, how much of that application is actually your code? What do you think? It's kind of like this, right? This is the code you write. The rest is, well, you're all Java developers. There is probably Spring Boot, and Spring Boot, and Spring Boot, whatever starter you're using, or whatever framework we were using, you're using a lot of frameworks and libraries to do the heavy lifting. And that's fair, because you do not want to create yet another REST endpoint or yet another CRUD repo. Let these libraries work that out. But honest question, who of you trusts your coworkers in your team blindly? One. Cool. So basically nobody. And that's true because we have things like code reviews in place, right? I don't trust blindly that my coworker will push code in without any mistakes because, well, everybody can make mistakes. That's the nice way to say it. Maybe I just think he's a moron. But we check each other. But how do we do that with the libraries and the frameworks you put in your POM or your Gradle file? Are you actually checking it out? Or it's like, it works, ship it. So let me get into this example. It's a Node example because it's easy to make fun of Node. Node example, 19 lines of code, 2 dependencies. How many dependencies will I actually put into my system? Because dependencies have dependencies, having dependencies, having dependencies, and it's Node having the whole internet. It's 19 dependencies, not that bad. But how many lines of code do I put into production? Any guesses? 300. It's Node. And we do not trust our peers. But we're Java developers. So let's make fun of Java as well. Because Spring. Spring is an awesome framework. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to get kicked in the butt by Josh next time. But I've got a Spring Serverless example. 222 lines of code. Of course, it's a snippet because 220 lines of code will not fit on my screen. And it was bad code. Trust me, I wrote it. It has 5 dependencies. These 5 dependencies have 54 dependencies in total. Because, well, it's a framework. How many lines of code do I put into production? Just shy of 500,000. And do you actually know which code you are using, how you're using it? Because people say, yeah, but I don't use that. Are you sure? There's a lot of reflection involved. And even if it's in, you give it away to the rest of your developers because you probably are improving it. And it's already there, so why can't I use it? So you should be aware of what is in your system, right? And open source usage has exploded for a good reason, because it helps us a lot. But it doesn't mean you can use it blindly without checking if it's actually secure. I mean, if a package is targeted and it's widely used, there are a lot of potential victims. So we need to get that into our heads. So if we see from the last year, these stats were taken in January 2019. You see that the amount of packages indexed in NPM was massive, because NPM. But even in Maven Central, the growth was over 100,000 packages. And if you see what the vulnerabilities were this close in a year, unfortunately, Maven is more Java packages. Maven Central, we took it as a benchmark, is the clear winner. And if we look at these packages, we see it's not the top-level package you actually put in your POM or your Gradle file, but are the packages that your framework is depending on, or even that is depending on, or, well, 3, 4, 5, whatever level deep. The problem is not in the top level. The problem is in the transitive dependencies. So we ask OS maintainers, how confident are you in your own security knowledge? And 63% says, kinda. And do you trust kinda? But you're not trusting your peers. Well, except for one. And we get on and on and on, because who's responsible for all these crap in security? Because I'm a developer, right? But if you look at it, it's a shared responsibility between developers, operations, security team, the whole DevOps mindset actually. But 81% of the respondents actually said developers need to take their fair share. So it's up to us, at least for a bit. And we can get on and on, like how do you find vulnerabilities? 27% probably don't. But this one is an interesting one. Once a vulnerability is found, or once it's there, how long does it take to get found? It can take up to 2.5 years. So who works on a legacy application? Lucky bastards. Only 5. Sure. But no, if your application is in your system for years and it's like everybody's depending on it, it's outward facing, but I don't dare to touch it, please take a look at that, because maybe you're using Apache Struts too. Who uses Docker? Who likes Docker? Who is forced to use Docker? But who builds their stuff upon Docker containers or base images that you just rip from Docker Hub? Say I just ripped the Node image and I built my Node app on top of that. Nobody, because nobody does Node, of course not. But if you look at the top 10 base images, we did a scan in March last year. And then you see that if you just get the latest Node thing out without giving it a specific tagline or a specific version number or whatever, just the latest, at that point you had 560 somewhat vulnerabilities for free. And these were all in the OS layer because it was built on an older JB and Jesse distro. So you have to think of that as well. Man, it's getting worse. We already have so much to do. And we can get on and on and on, but I want to get into the hacking part again. So let me get into that. So again, making fun of Node is easy, right? So I have this to-do app. It doesn't do anything but list to-do, like buy flowers. Cool, I can buy flowers. And you see I'm a great UX designer. You can hire me. Because of the best about page ever. This about page is given to you with the ST library. The ST is a static library in Node, and it serves you static content. And that static library, the ST library, this version has a vulnerability, a so-called path traversal vulnerability. So let me get into that. Again, if I want to do a hacking, I will go to my terminal because, well, it's too lame to do it from your browser. I'm using curl. Can everybody read this? Or shall I increase it? No, let me just delay it. You can read it, right? Who cannot read it? Perfect. So I curl this about page, and I will get the HTML out. Perfect. And I know there is a path traversal problem in this. So let me do this again. If I do path traversal, I want to get back into the path structure. So I do something like dot dot slash, dot dot slash, dot dot slash. I can do that a million times, because if I'm in the root, I do dot dot slash in the root, I will end up in the root. So let me check what happens. I will get an HTML file, which is weird. Oh, it's basically the goof to do, so the main app. It will redirect this thing back to my homepage, which is fair because the ST library is an actual library. And I can make fun of Node as much as I want, but they do check on the dot dot slash, thankfully. But we found out, or not we found out, people found out they blacklisted it. So let's be a little bit smarter. What can we do instead of dot dot? Any ideas? URL encoding. Who knows the URL encoding for a dot? Thankfully, nobody. It's %2e. So if I do this once, or let's say I'm a lazy developer, a million times, I will end up in the root of my system. And I can do something like this, and now you have information. So you can snoop around, which is fun. And it's not harmful, because they say, well, you can read, this is read only. But just don't answer this one. Do you have on your application server, do you have somewhere property files which include like the credentials to your database, for instance? Nobody, right? No, good. But you get it. You can snoop around from now. And what you can do as well, if I only do this once, so instead of traversing back outside of the whole web server, but I just want to get out of that public folder, which already is a problem. Oh, and I do it like this. What did I do wrong? Oh, wow, it's, yes. I can see over here that, oh, there's a package.json. That's much fun. And now I can see all the packages you're using. And one by one, I just look into that. And I found out that this MS package, for instance, has a vulnerability, and this mark package has a vulnerability, and jQuery probably has a vulnerability because it's jQuery. But MS package, let's go into that one. Because who of you likes regular expressions? Okay, keep your hand up. Who of you likes to read other people's regular expressions? I mean, the only good way to write a regular expression is this. Right? I have no clue how to write them. It's like, yeah. Just do that iterative, and probably in some iteration it will work out. Anyway, if we have a regular expression, we do not actually know how regular expressions work. Like, if I have a weird regular expression like this, and I will match it, so the A plus, don't dot, and I match it towards this string. It matches, but you don't know how. I mean, use the plus, use the star, use the plus until halfway, we don't know. But what we do know, if it doesn't match, it goes into some sort of backtracking mode. And basically, it will try every solution that is part of that expression and match that to the string, right? That's basic regular expression, how that work. So if I make this regular expression way long, and I make that string way long, and I know it never matches, so it needs to do every single step, it will take a long time. On how many threads does a node application work? Fun, only one. So that means if I occupy that thread with a regular expression, and it takes a very long time, you have a denial of service. Let me show you this one. I will echo this. I will again, I will be using a command line tool called httpy. And by doing so, I will fill in the form with the phrase "call mom in 20 minutes." By doing that, it will come back, and you will see in my application that it says "call mom in 20M." So 20 minutes will be converted to 20M. Perfect. So let me do it like this. So instead of giving it a real phrase, I will project 60,000 fives and match it to minutes. And it works, but it took already slightly longer because regular expression. And you will see that it will match into this phrase, buy milk in infinity days. Oh, that's useful. But how to get in that backtracking state? I really want to get into that full backtracking state. So I will do this again, and instead of minutes, I'm originally from Holland, I live there, and I mistype everything. So I make it a Z. And now it hangs. And now I go back to my application, and I type something, and I press enter, and you see it hangs. So that means that that thread is occupied. And until every of these 60,000 things are done and matched against that minutes, it will release that thread, and it will, well, all the other things will come in. That means if you're running on bare metal, and you have like 2 application servers running on Node with this package, I just do this 2 times and you're done. Say you're an e-commerce platform, I will do this probably, and you're my competitor, I will probably do this on Black Friday. Who works in the cloud? Can you imagine what happened there? Because you're not available, so a new cloud instance spins up. I do it again, a new cloud instance spins up, and I do it again. It's not a denial of service, fair enough, but it's a denial of your budget. So it is a problem, and just by having the wrong package in, the wrong version in. Okay, enough fun about JavaScript. Let's go into Java. I have this application I showed you on Heroku, and let me just sign up for it. I will use my my own credentials. Yes, password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because I work at a security company, and this is a very, very strong password. And I'm in. Cool. Again, it's a to-do app because, well, we didn't have anything better to do. So I will create a to-do, and in this case, I will do something like this. I will say eat pie, and I'm trying to be nerdy. I give it a date somewhere in 1970, and let me, because probably I'm hungry by now, I give it a high priority. I will create it, and what you see is that that pi symbol is transferred into a ASCII representation. And we know, from that we know that it uses the native to ASCII function within the JDK. Somewhere in JDK is native to ASCII, so I can put a symbol in, I get the ASCII representation. Fun. Keep that in mind. What we can do as well, we can upload files. And we can upload zip files in this case. But what if I can upload a zip file to override that native to ASCII thing? But how? Let me show you. So say we are here. Yes. And say my zip file looks like this. My zip file contains two files. A good.txt, which is just a text file, and a file that is //, the path reversal to the root, and then /app/jdk, which is exactly the JDK location we found out with that first hack, with that struts hack, and I go into the JDK and overwrite native to ASCII. It'll be fun, right? Because I'm using a library to unzip, because we don't have that natively in the Java JDK. Let's try. So I'm going to that application, and I will choose a file. And of course, I didn't prepare this good enough. Yep, it's over here. I open the file, and I will upload it. And it comes back. And in the public folder where I expect things to be unzipped, there's that good.txt. So it means it did unzip the stuff. So, or it went wrong and it swallowed the //, or it actually overwritten it. That's Dutch. You see what happened? I overwritten the native to ASCII file function with simply an echo, muhaha, gotcha. So that means, because I'm using this library to unzip, it doesn't check the canonical path. It just used the path, it just used the file name, it concatenates these two together, and it executes. And by not checking the inputs, and I'm trusting on this library, you're vulnerable. But this one is already disclosed, already solved, and there is a newer version out. So coming back to that thing, oh wait, who uses Apache Struts too? Nobody, right? Because it's ancient. Well, let me show you a Spring example. This is Spring, yes? It is Spring Data and Spring Data REST. So I have a CRUD repository, and we all know as Spring developers, then we can use to extend this interface, I only have to do things like this, find by name, and it will be there. It will create the queries for me. I do not have to take care of the CRUD stuff. And with the Spring Data REST library and this annotation, I can recreate my repository, my CRUD repo, into a REST repo, which is fun because now I can start on the real work, how it looks. Because you saw I'm a great UX designer. So by doing that, I have a grocery list over here. And this grocery list consists of a few things, milk, beans, and they have a certain price. Well, the item is not that interesting. It's just an ID, a name, and a cost. All right, so I'm calling this one, and hopefully it works. Yes, it works. And I'm going to localhost 8080. I will be redirected to my help browser, which I can show you that I can do things like this. I will go into items, and I will have the first item. And you will see that the first item is beans for 50 cents. I can also do things like find by name, and I want to beans, and we'll get beans, or what was it, milk. So my REST repository is a CRUD repo. Fun. But what we can do with it, Spring has an expression language. SPL, Spring Expression Language. Quite useful. But if I, oh, this is the other one. This is the, yeah. Never mind. If I look at this REST exploit, and I will give it, I will call it with this body, you will see that it's just a JSON body. But in that JSON body, I just like with the struts problem, I will execute the expression language. And again, I will execute a command by getting the runtime and executing a command. And this is just a regular Spring Boot app. Only a certain version, of course, a vulnerable version. And by doing that, and I will, let me get the environment variables again. So I will do a curl patch request, in this case, with that content type, just towards the items 1, which was there just to give me the first item in the list. It's there, and you're using it in a very weird way, because I'm using a JSON body in a patch request. And by doing this, I will have the environment variables of my own machine again. So that means this arbitrary code intrusion or arbitrary code execution within the machine is not only a struts2 problem. So don't think like it's ancient, we're not using that library anymore. We're using the newer, fancier framework from today. These things still happen. So that means you need to be careful of it. You need to make sure that you know what you're getting into your app. So getting back from all this boogeyman stuff and like, oh, it's so scary, there is a solution. Only the solution is not simple. Solution is 3 ways. Team culture, process, and tooling. And let me start with culture, because not only team culture, it's business culture, it's company culture. Because we work with different people in a company. And with these different people come different responsibilities. We as developers, we want to create stuff. We want to make stuff. We want to make stuff fast, put it out, and get done with the new fancy stuff, right? We are builders. Security people don't care. They just want to make sure that you don't get breached, which is a fair point. That is their KPI. Then you have operations. They just want to know that it's maintainable. And if in the middle of the night they get called, they just have to push a button and it's done. And management, what does management care about? Money. But the point is, if your boss's boss is pushing him and they're pushing you to get things out fast. So they need to give you the time to actually do this kind of work, like cleaning up your code, making sure that you have enough tests, and making sure that you're actually secure. And if we have that mindset and work together with security department, like where do we have to look for instance? And can we get that security inside our team instead of siloed at the end? Then we're starting to do a better job from the beginning, instead of building everything and start over again. Then we have process, because nobody wants to change, actually. But if you can adapt the process in such a tiny, tiny way that things are easy, for instance, automated, or can be done with an easy procedure, then you probably make it work. Because if people say, you got breached, now you have to pen test every release before you can get it out of the door. You will do that for 2 weeks. And after that, it's like, nah, we need to get this out. Yeah, this is an exception. Yeah, sure. And you go back to that old routine you already had. So then the tooling comes in. Make sure that you pick the tooling that fits your use case. There is no tool. There is no silver bullet. There is no tool to rule them all. But you look at how it works. Look at how your process works. And pick the tools that can help you with security. And we want to say you have to DevSecOps your pipeline. It's not your CI pipeline, because most people in their CI pipeline have some sort of scanning. But why only there? That's the gatekeeper. You need that before you go into production. Why not go into your local machine? If I'm on my local machine, I can scan on my local machine to see if there are vulnerabilities. And before I actually commit the stuff to my Git repo, by doing something easy like this, you can scan, and of course I'm using my own tool, but there are more tools out there that can scan your stuff. But if you can do that on your local machine already, you will get the easy ones out. In this case, it will scan my dependency tree, and it will give me results like, oh, I've got some real problems with licensing, which can be a problem as well. I've got some high severity problems. And oh, hey, why not if I update from 2.15 to 2.2.0? I get rid of all these problems. Well, this is usable advice. So pick the tools that fit your stuff best from your local machine. This is a CLI, but there are integrations with Eclipse and IntelliJ, for instance, for Java developers. So on your local machine, that's the first part. And then your repository. Why not connect your repository to a scanner as well? And every time there is a new commit, or say there is no new commit, but every single day, let it scan. And if there's something new, let them email you. Let them create, for instance, automatic fix pull requests. Like if it's just updating a version, we can create a pull request for you, and let's see if that works. And maybe that doesn't work for you, quit it. You still need that stuff in your CI pipeline, because you want to be safe before you go into production. So maybe break your build there, or at least warn yourself. Because at a certain point, you might be comfortable with a few vulnerabilities, because it's probably impossible to get to zero in a large monolithic system. But when you're in production, you're not done. Make sure at that point you make a snapshot of it. And that snapshot, scan it on a regular basis, because if it's in, it's probably not in for a day. Maybe it is, but if it's not, it can be that what is safe today can be unsafe tomorrow. They can find something like it, and if you don't know it, and it's already there in production, and you're not looking at it because you're looking at your new code, then you have a problem. That was actually the thing that happened to that Equifax company. So once there, take a snapshot, take a look at that on a regular basis, and get actively pinged. So it doesn't cost you any work. No, you will get actively pinged when something goes wrong. And that's only the dependency stuff. You also need to check your own code, of course. What we always say in the security world is like shift left as possible. And left means as left to the local machine of the developer as possible. So test it on your local machine and test it all the way out to the right part, and the right side is production. But you need to test in all aspects of your SDLC. But it's not only shifting security left. I want to say left, but that's your left. It's also making sure that the whole tree, and that means your C-level people and your management level people, know that they need to do that you need to do that everybody needs to take care of security. So it's not only shifting left, but it's also bottom up. Making sure that everybody from top to bottom knows that not only agility is something we need to, and scalability and maintainability are things we need to take care of, but also security. And if you catch it early, you will prevent a lot of rework. If you want to get more information on that little purple dot, so your code, but you already do code review. But we created some cheat sheets to look at code in a different way, because code reviews tend to be like, you put that semicolon on the wrong row. You should put that curly brace not on the same line, but on the next line. That's not a code review, that's bashing. That's bashing about style. But don't look at code reviews only, for instance, on, well, speed and scalability, but also on, am I not introducing a cross-site scripting effect over here? Or am I not introducing a SQL injection over here with this code? Look from that perspective as well. And give, when reviewing, give the code to the right people. Don't do it at the last day of your sprint and give it to the junior. You know how it works. Like, okay, I've got 15 classes. You need to review it. We got 20 minutes. Go. I worked on it for a week. That doesn't work. If it's security heavy, give it to the security people that need to be part of your team, of course. But you get me? Get it to the right people and look at it from a security perspective. That's all I have for today. I can do more code the things, but I think I'm about on time, right? I've got 10 minutes left. I'm early today. That's for a fact. So I want to know if somebody has questions on this. So I have a question for you then. Who thinks he can pull this off in his own company? A few. I think what you need to do tomorrow or the day after is talk to your team lead. Like, how do we implement security? How do we think it would be? First of all, is it important for us? And everybody would say yes. But then you have the question, and that's always a C-level question, like, but what is the return on investment? How much money should I put in before well, basically it's not getting breached. That is your return on investment. And if you get the tooling in place and your stuff in place, and at least you have the time to do that, so go to your manager. If you think that's important, give me time. And that is the discussion you need to start with, because we talked about tooling, about process, and about team culture. Team culture is the hardest one and the thing you need to start at first. Because if that's not in order, you can create all the tools and you can get all the tools you want, but you probably will not use it because, well, nobody cares about it. And if somebody shoves a tool up your whatever, you probably won't use it. Only thing I want to say is I just showed you a few scans. You can do this for free. What I showed you, try it at home. And even if your boss doesn't approve, you can try it for free on your pet projects and even on your proprietary stuff. So I want to thank you for being here. How many people did fall asleep? Oh, they are asleep. They cannot. OK, who has a neighbor who fell asleep? Thank God. Thank you so much for attending, and hopefully you have a great day. Thank you.